preparing the stream. And we are now on the YouTubes. Here we go. 3, 2, and hello, and welcome to a new edition of Extra Connections here on JLJ Media. I am your host, James Lott Jr., and I'm starting a new series with I'm going to do actual live panels talking about different kinds of subjects and talking to people who are behind some of your favorite shows and things they're doing in the media. So I started with 3 friends of mine, and I know each of them from various reasons, and we're going to talk about life in the biz, as you see in the title. 4 men talking about life as content creators in the biz. It is not as easy as you think. No. As you know, I do over 30, 35 shows. I have all here on my JLJ Media Network, so please, while you're here, subscribe. And do that for me, please. Also have music and I have books. I do all kinds of things, and I play in my garden. But these folks do stuff too, so I'm going to introduce each of them to you if you don't know them already. I'm going to start with this gentleman here. He's one of the last folks that I met, and I like him a lot. And we have a little show we do every once in a while on my channel called James Lott Jr. is the farmer and Jack Farmer is the DJ. We talk music and stuff. We also have, yes, yeah, we talk music. He does the Anytime radio show, the Lead of the Week, and he does stuff with several guys, and I mean the guy up there in the corner too. Stuff is Mr. Jack Farmer. Hi, Jack Farmer.
Hey, James, thanks for having me on. Yeah, last time we chatted all about Christmas music and our favorite.
Yes, we did.
Kind of influenced a few episodes of the Anytime radio show, and spoiler alert, I might be revisiting some of the things we talked about in an upcoming episode.
Oh, okay. And also, I'm setting up for us to do some other genres like grunge and pop. He likes pop music. So we're going to talk a little bit. So I'm working on some stuff for us in 2021. So we're going to do it. You're my music guy, so we're going to talk music. Now, ironically, another guy who's a DJ on here, I do a lot of things with him. Yeah, I do. Yes, you have a microphone. I do a lot of things with him. We do music together. He's on my shows. Mistletoe Road, he is one of the leads, plays Darrell Light. New episode out tomorrow, by the way. He also has New Amsterdam. He has What's Up Flobo and What's Up Flobo After Hours. He has a Star Trek Discovery after show. He does all kinds of Draped in Gold with that guy over there. He does all kinds of stuff. My buddy from Brooklyn, Flobo Boyce.
Yeah, how's it going, sir? Thanks so much for having me on the premiere episode. I'm excited, interested, curious of what this show's going to be about. But, we're here to talk content and the struggles around it.
You are in good hands with James Lott Jr. You have to worry about that. Okay, and this person literally, and I mean in all seriousness, I would not even be here doing online content if it wasn't for him. He created a show that I started, seriously, I could create a show, a long-running Dish and Days, that is still out there on their channel, Dish and Days. At the end, I'll be able to tell you where you can find other stuff. But he also had the long-running show, Lounging with Tony, where he had all kinds of people on that show for several seasons. He did so many things at AfterBuzz TV, which all of us have done, but he did a lot of things there too. He currently has more pleas on Monday. Tomorrow is his season finale, which is a good, so we love his theme song. If you haven't heard the theme song, you need to hear it. But he's done a lot of shows, and he's just also one of my best friends also, Mr. Tony Moore.
Hi, everyone. It's me, Tony. Thanks, James Lott Jr. Listen, you talk about me doing a lot. It's in your name to do a lot. So, here we are. So thank you for having me on something else that you're doing.
Well, I'm going to ask. So the first question actually is about me. What are your impressions about me as a content creator? I'm actually very curious. Now anybody can start. Tell you what your impressions of me as a content creator.
I feel like I should be polite and just wait.
I've known you the longest, obviously, but Flobo and I know each other about a year, and Jack and I are closer. But I'm just curious, what kind of impression? I mean, if you see my stuff and I post it, do you know what I do? Like, what are your impressions?
My first impressions of you, James, is, as mentioned, you do a lot. You do a lot of stuff. And I mean that in a good way. I think what's great about you is, at least as a perception from the outside looking in, you're someone that when you want to do something, you do it. And I think so many people get so hung up on I got to wait until it's perfect, or I got to figure things out, or they get analysis paralysis. But something about you is it seems like when you get an idea to do something, you do it. And I think that's something that anyone who's watching this can learn from and use to be more successful themselves.
Analysis paralysis. I like that. Very interesting. Folks do that. They do that.
That's my contribution for this episode. Thank you.
That was good. I was like, that was good. I like that. I was like, that was really good. Flobito.
I want to price it right this. And $1. No, I think it's not even so much like you do a lot. That usually comes second when I try to describe who you are, because there's not many people. Okay, everyone wants to be real, right? Because in marketing, everyone wants to be authentic. I'm about myself. But a lot of times, I get misconstrued as being absolutely rude. But like your personality is 100% you, and that is you, straight no chaser. Your background, your experiences, you're open about everything you do, and you put that into what you work. And so you're not trying to be a persona. Even though you may find it fan out about Star Wars, you're not trying to do it just because it's popular. It's because you care about it. So that comes first, and then also you do a lot because you don't sleep like Batman.
Like Batman. yeah. I think that. And tell you what, you know me the longest. I mean, you've seen me grow from my radio show onto this, so you know me the longest.
Agreed.
See? That's what I said. That's what I said.
No, the thing about James is that he's very fearless, whereas he has an idea and he just does it. He goes for it. He's like, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. And he does it, which is something that I've always admired about him, and something that I've taken from him, is just when you have an idea, just go for it. It may not turn out exactly how you want to, right off the bat, but you keep working on it and you keep putting it out there. Things will happen with it. So, that's one of the things I've always appreciated. Now, this man will put the entire buffet on his plate and somehow get through all of it, which is another thing that I admire about him, because he has many, many, many projects that are going on and still makes time for gardening and friends. So
gardening and friends.
Gardening and friends.
Well, thank you guys. I want to start with you, Tony, because again, I've watched you grow, and I've watched you. I came in, I thought you were an icon when I first met you. As many folks may not know this, I was nervous to meet him because I did his show. It was back when it was just called Days of Our Lives After Show. It wasn't called Days yet.
Yeah.
I did 2 episodes while he was gone. And then I came on and I had heard that Tony's the man. This is his show. He created it. He's the man. And I was nervous. And then when you met, he gave me a big hug. He was like, hi, Jay. It's nice to meet you.
It's so interesting to hear your perception of me, because I definitely don't see myself in this hierarchy sort of way. I see myself just like you all. I had an idea, I created something, and I just did it. And so, I didn't walk in like Miranda Priestley and, throw my jacket and bag at you and said, Emily, go do it. But it's weird sometimes when people kind of perceive you in a certain way. But I was very appreciative of the fact that you came in and sub for me. I was going to say replace, but you didn't replace. You sub for me during that time, and I thought you did a great job. I think you were knowledgeable of Days, and I was appreciative. And you always tell that story of how you were so nervous to meet me, and I'm like, why? Because I'm just me. I'm just a little old me.
Yeah. I think it's also you should also take the accolades that people think highly of you, because you did, especially at AfterBuzz, and all 4 of us know this. They have a format. Now, Jack, I don't know, did you do any after shows there, or were you just all doing any after shows for shows, like TV shows?
Yeah, I did a couple. Yeah.
So then the format was it was like pop topic, news and gossip, predictions, the whole thing. Tony had to take that and turn on its ear, because we had 5 episodes of a show to do to cover. And Tony made a whole. So I'm saying, so Tony should get points because of him, I modified. We all kind of followed suit. So Tony, you should take some when people look at it, because you did do something that was kind of different.
Well, that's called producing a show. That's taking an idea and making sure that the show makes sense for the audience that you're trying to target. And when we started Dish and Days, our show in particular had 5 episodes a week. So we weren't just covering, what happened in a 30-minute, 1-hour show that only airs once a week. We're dealing with 5 shows, multiple storylines, and multiple characters. And so it's like, how do we recap this show so that audience can understand it, and there's a flow to it, but also so that if someone who just for some reason decided to tune in would like understand it too. So I recognized early on that the format that AfterBuzz had set forth just wouldn't fit us. And so I had to kind of pivot and adjust it so that it fit and made sense. And literally since day one, we have kept, the same format. And it's been working so far. So you just have to take the time to produce a show. You can't just go in and the camera turns on and you just automatically will know what to do. You have to have some sort of plan for your show. And if things don't work out, it's fine. You pivot and, you try something else.
Very true. Flobo, now you tell a funny story how you guess you first noticed me at AfterBuzz. I came out of a show.
I first noticed. I was
talking about the show. Some funny you said. I think it's hilarious. Something you said that you saw me do.
It's one of those things where, like Jack, there was a time where I couldn't get on a show. And so I was doing so many shows to try to show out and prove, because that's definitely the biggest fallacy in this society. It's like you work really hard, people will notice you. I mean, hard work is table stakes, but no one's gonna notice you because you work hard.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do other things. So, but I heard that, hey man, you grinding. Did you hear about James Lott Jr.? Did you hear about like, no, don't know. There's so many people at AfterBuzz. By the time I was there, I was host number 370 hired, and I think they had like about 450 before when they closed down. So it's like a giant high school. No one knows who is where and what. But it was, I guess, a year ago now. Well, I think so, because the Christmas season, it was the Christmas channel. And it was early in the afternoon, so there's like no one there. I was there for like a recording. I'm hanging out in the little viewing stations, and this door from the studio was burst open. And then there James comes out wearing a Santa hat, sweating from the stage lights, had a box of like Christmas stuff with a super organizer logo on it. It's like, oh, how's it going, man? I'm just getting ready for the next show. Yeah, Christmas 24/7. And goes right back to another studio. I'm just like, who is this dude, right? And everyone else was like, that's James. Like it was like normal. I was like, huh, okay, that's cool, And I think the fact that I was there early to do wrestling shows, or be there early enough to beat traffic to do wrestling shows, that's when I started connecting.
And Jack, how did you get to AfterBuzz?
Flobo.
Don't say it like that. Yo, my man Jack in there.
No,
he got you hooked into AfterBuzz.
I mean, basically, yeah, he's how I found out about it. And I think I had talked about it with him for like 6 months before I ever actually acted on it. But then like a lot of people, you go to this place and it's this small studio. And like a lot of things, once you see behind the camera, in your mind, before you ever go to a studio, you imagine it much different than a studio actually looks like. But then you get there, and to Flobo's credit, being host number 300, whatever, you go and there's, there's like 25 people in the first, I guess, interview. And then there's like an orientation, and then there's like a training. And it's funny because you see this group slowly dwindle smaller and smaller and smaller. Yeah. And that's kind of how I got my foot in the door. But then from there, like Flobo said, you try to find your way onto a show. And then even when you get on a show, I don't know what it is. I think it's just something about me, but I always feel like I'm about to get cut. I always feel like I'm about to get let go. And so I always have this like
volunteer job, Jack. What?
I always got this feeling that everyone's gonna be like, okay, Jack, we're done with you. Thanks, but no thanks. And they're going to make me go home. And so I always am trying to find out things to do or ways to be on. So yeah, I did a bunch of shows, and eventually, fortunately, I was able to do the wrestling, which is what I wanted to come there for in the first place. But yeah, it's you kind of like everyone else. You show up, and you just keep showing up, and you just hope that they let you stick around. And then eventually they went on vacation, and now I'm not sticking. Now I don't get to go in anymore. But
you still lose. Yeah.
So wait, so y'all joined AfterBuzz when it was at the North Hollywood studio?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, try joining AfterBuzz when they were in a house. And showing up to the house and feeling like this is how my life ends. I'm going to walk into this house. I didn't know what I was walking into, but here we are years later.
Right.
There's that.
Same here.
But that's what I mean. That's what I mean with this whole thing, though. I mean, even though with the house versus the studio or anything like that, you always think in your mind, when you see this stuff, you always think it looks and feels different than it really does. And even when you're there, and even in those studios, they look so much bigger on screen than they are in person. And it's just an interesting, once you're there and you see it. But of course, for their purposes, it doesn't make sense to be bigger than it was. Like, it was perfect for what they needed, but just in your mind, you imagine this giant studio and this big space. And I remember going in there and being like, wow, this is not what I expected at all. But it was a cool experience.
Yeah.
I want to say hi to everybody in the chat room. People were coming in. Hello, you guys. I'm glad you guys are here. Thank you, Mysterio, for the comments to all four of us. I want to ask the besides me and Tony, because there's a lot of things at AfterBuzz. There are camps of people. And it's so blog. We had our own kind of camp, and people knew who we were. Kind of. I heard a lot of things about the wrestling camp. There's a whole wrestling side of things. By the time you guys came on, a lot of the greats have, big ones had left by then. There were a few still left over,
Yeah.
But
our viewers reminded us that all the time.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, they were long gone, y'all.
Long gone, they left. But no, it seemed like at AfterBuzz there were several groups that got kind of noticed because we did produce our show. So were your wrestling shows produced as I think they were, or no?
You want me to, Jack? You want to take that shot?
Well, but you take it away.
Yeah. So yes and no. I think because we did it per episode, so we didn't have the kind of intensity the soap opera shows did. Because a wrestling show doesn't have topics, they have matches. The challenge was always, because when I took over the shows, because the time I became the lead host of the AfterBuzz Wrestling Raw, which was their biggest show in NXT, my predecessor, Evan Mack, got promoted to WWE. Whereas a lot of people have their own opinion about that. To me, one of the most important things I wanted to do in my era was to give every single match time for discussion, because growing up, I like the smaller wrestlers. I was a big D'Lo Brown fan. He was never in the main event. So I wanted to bring that there. So while the show was going live, I will have the match name, the winning result, and by how they did it. I'll add a joke or a tag if it came to me in that time, and then I'll have other facts about like the city the things was in, if there were promos that were important. And because Raw was more entertainment based, then I would have to rearrange the most important match all the way down to the least important match, just in case if you ran short on time, tell them those jokes, you can cut things. So the challenge every Monday was to take 3 hours of Monday Night Raw into 40 or 35 minutes by the end of AfterBuzz's run in a way that was entertaining, engaging, made people feel like they were rewarded. Yeah, rewarded for tuning in. And so the reason why I don't have to go into that so much, because it's very easy to pound your chest and be like, I do so much work live as a comedian, as a content creator, you people should love me. But ultimately, the audience will decide if they care enough. And so there were some weeks that it felt like no one was watching, or you work really hard on making a show funny, and people go, we miss Fun Dad. And you're just like, what am I doing this for? But it helped you get into a rhythm of training. So now my own content, I treat it as if I was willing to do that to AfterBuzz and they weren't paying me, well, okay, I'm going to do that same kind of intensity with my own shows because I'm hiring myself.
What was really impactful, I think, too, as well, is we like when I was there, a new wrestling company was started, AEW, and so I was the one that branched off and made a new show for the AEW after show. And it was interesting because you are creating a new show, but at the same time, AfterBuzz has certain ways they like to do things, and so you're trying to balance being your own show and being this new thing, but also having to walk a company line, so to speak. And something that was, I mean, it was kind of a pain in certain spots, but at the same time, now that I'm doing it on my own, it was actually really powerful because it was something that taught me that sometimes you got to add things you may not necessarily want to add, or do things you don't necessarily want to do. And it also trains you, and maybe to Flobo's point, to analyze what you're doing. And Tony, maybe even to your point of how you had to produce your own show, is it makes you have to go, even though I like it this way, I might need to adjust what I'm doing and change what I'm doing because it's not working. And having that self-critical nature to be able to say, just because I like it and just because this feels good doesn't mean it's necessarily the right way to do the show. And that was something that I think I took a lot away from doing that. And I guess the level of producing I was doing while I was at AfterBuzz.
And also sometimes as a creator and producer of anything that you're doing, sometimes you have to fight for certain things. Like for us, when it came to Dish and Days, at AfterBuzz, we only had about 45 minutes, and in reality, 35 minutes because they would start late. to actually do your show? Well, we had 5 episodes, multiple storylines, and even little tidbits that weren't like highlighted, but things that we had to go over. So that's when I kind of had to go to them and say, listen, we actually need more time. We actually need more than the 45 minutes. We need an hour, we need an hour and a half to make sure that we're able to get through the show and do it justice. And then, and shortly after we started, we had guests that would come in, and it was kind of hard to recap a show, but also have a guest, because sometimes, our guests would not be familiar with the other storylines. They would only be familiar with theirs, but we couldn't spend 35 minutes on one storyline. So all that to say, sometimes if you, Jack, you just mentioned kind of walking that company line on what they do. Sometimes you got to go, look, I understand the line, but I'm drawing a new one, because if this is going to be beneficial for us and for you, it now has to be done in this way. And this is why it has to be done this way. And for a lot of times, AfterBuzz in particular, didn't understand why we needed more time. But when they saw that we were growing, we had a loyal fan base, and we had all these people from the show coming in, that's when they went, aha, yes, they do. Yes, whatever you need. Yes, whatever. So sometimes you have to fight for the integrity of your work, because you don't want someone else to tell you or dictate what it should be, especially if it's something that can't be adjusted. Sometimes you have to go, no, it does. We really need to try it this way.
I agree. There were several times I've had, I have no problem speaking up. So there were several times I had to say a few things and like, no, I'm not doing it that way. They're trying to censor me a little bit or whatever. And I'm like, no.
2 words, May 31st.
May 31st. People go to YouTube, Edition Days on AfterBuzz TV. May 31st was 2016, 2015.
No, that was 2015. May 31st, 2015.
And you'll go to the end. You'll see what happens. That's all we'll tell you. Go to the end. But there are things that you have to stand up for yourself. And that's something in this business. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, Tony, and kind of Jack a little bit too, that you have to like go, okay, sometimes a co-host is not a good co-host. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes you just don't have chemistry. Sometimes it's just not working, or certain segments don't work on a show. It's time to drop them. Like if the segment doesn't work, then just fucking drop it.
Or sometimes a co-host decides to leave.
Yes,
then what do you do?
Yes, I did leave your show for other things.
First of all, there were multiple people who made that decision. I wasn't specifically talking to you.
Yeah, you're looking right up. You said it.
Mm-hmm. I was actually looking into my camera. Thank you. But sometimes you build a show and you build a rapport and you build a cast and then someone decides, listen, this is too much for me, or something happens in their life or something like that, and you adjust. I've learned that it's like, people have to make decisions based on what's best for them, but it doesn't mean that you have to stop what you're doing and what you see in what you're creating. So you wish that person well, and then you keep your train moving. If that person decides to hop back on later, then it's up to you to decide whether or not you want to bring them back on. But don't let someone else's decision dictate what you continue to put out there.
And so for you guys who did, now that AfterBuzz is what it is at the moment, you guys picked up some of that wrestling show. You're doing some wrestling shows. Was that a easy decision to make, or a hard decision to make? Or what kind of decision was that? What kind of decision did you go into making? You're going to do certain shows, the wrestling.
Well, for me, I enjoy chatting wrestling, and that's kind of how I got into it in the first place with Flobo. Is we kept chatting about pro wrestling all the time, and so eventually it got me on the show. But it was one of those things where when AfterBuzz became what it is now, we didn't really know a lot of what was happening. And so on my end, and I'll let Flobo speak for himself, but on my end, I was like, I got this microphone, I got this camera. I like chatting wrestling anyways. We got fans looking for an after show to watch. Why not just do it ourselves? Why not just do a show? And worst case scenario, it doesn't work and we give up on it. But for me, it was like, we've got everything in place. Why give it up now? And So it seemed like a very simple decision to just keep on going and keep on doing it. Frankly, I mean, I don't know why AfterBuzz just doesn't have us continue to do it for their channel, but now it's on my channel, and now I don't care because it's my channel, so it's even better. But going back, it seems like you had everything in place. Why mess it up? But I digress. To me, it was something. If I didn't have this after show, I would be probably just blowing up Flobo's phone with my thoughts anyway. So might as well make a show.
What are you talking about? Read the Nitro book. No.
So Flobo, so what about you?
I was torn. I was more torn than Jack was, because again, by the end of the AfterBuzz era, and I'm not blaming the fans. The fans are what that tune in. Without your fan base, you're nothing. But there was just so much. There was so many times people hit me up and like, "Hey, Flo, you all right? But you're not Evan. You're not Johnny LaQuasto. You're not Ryan Katz." And that's great because I'm not. I never said I was, but I felt we did something that was very proud. I was burnt out. So people don't know this. AfterBuzz had, well, they put it on hiatus in July, but I was going to leave AfterBuzz in August because SummerSlam is my favorite pay-per-view. I was going to do SummerSlam and then leave. I was on my way out and I was going to be done with wrestling. Not because I didn't like it. It was because I got tired of being compared to other people, even though I tried to do, in my opinion, a better show. Whether it was better, it's up to debate. And I think in the throes of the original lockdown, where every day felt like one giant vacation party, Jack and I was like, hey, let's do Wrestling with Wrestling. It was like a weekly talk show. It ran for, I can't believe this, 16 weeks. That's how long his lockdown was.
Wow, really?
But then I had the appetite to do it again a bit. And I said, man, and Jack knows this. I was like, after shows would be so cool, but I can't deal with the pressure of trying to do this again and trying to have the fan base say, why are you coming back? Is Evan coming back? Where's Kim and Nakaro? Where's Maria? And I had, the long story short, I had to make the show make sense for me. So for Elite of the Week, I work with Jack because I love the fact he's a fan about the AEW brand. He sees it from a cool perspective. Sometimes we butt heads about that, which makes it cool. For my show, Draped in Gold, we cover the NXT brand. But for me, I really love United Kingdom, like NXT UK. So I was like, let me find a way to combine these two brands, these two shows into one. If UK did not exist, I don't think I would have done an NXT review show. If Candice Mack didn't hit me up and say, hey, let's do a retrospective about The Undertaker, I wouldn't even think about it because I was still trying to figure out a way to make wrestling work in a way that was mentally healthy for me and still enjoying it. But it worked out and I love it. The video we did, Candice and I, was great. I mean, people loved it. So it was all for the best.
Yeah.
I'll say Tony. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jack. So Jack, what were you going to say?
Oh, yeah, no, I was just going to add, and, personally, I always like to see where things can go and how they can grow. And, I'm not going to hide from it. I have some aspirations of trying to become a member of the wrestling industry and be on the other side of the business. And because of what I was doing, I was able to use that to put together a reel. And it did get me a job as a backstage interviewer for the United Wrestling Network on Primetime Live, which you can check out on Fight TV. 12 episodes. Give it a check out. See what it's all about. I interview wrestlers backstage. We're on hiatus again now, but the point is, even if it never came back, there's a part of me that got to live a little bit of the dream because of this. And that was kind of one of the reasons I wanted to keep it going, was to build that skill set and to also stay within sort of the zeitgeist of the pro wrestling world. So it worked out for me in that case, and hopefully it continues.
I love Jack Farmer. Jack Farmer's like me. We will plug something in a second with no shame. That's right,
yes.
Jack. Plug it.
Yes.
Plug
yes. It. Speaking of, if you need coffee, go to www.thebrosters.com and use promo code BROCODE1. Some dynamite coffee. It's really good.
I love it. I don't care. You don't care, Flobo. I love it. Jack, you can plug all you want.
I have learned to sit here and just, like James Lott Jr., I have to allot 5 to 10 minutes for James Lott Jr. to rattle off all the stuff that he does, and I just sit.
Yeah, Flobo does too. He's like, okay, James, you go James, do your thing. And I talk about
how many times did you say the word Lott?
They're all, wait, Jack just pulled a James Lott Jr.
I win in Rome.
Don't aspire. Don't aspire to do that.
Yeah, aspire, do it. Tony, I was going to ask you because you and I did at the beginning. Well, actually, Flobo and I did too at the beginning. I talked to both of you guys, both my friends, on the side about the pandemic. I didn't know you really yet, Jack. Okay. Now I'll talk to you. Now I know you.
Okay.
But I knew them, and we talked about this after AfterBuzz kind of at the time when on hiatus. What was next? And Tony and I talked a lot about that and how I chose to make mine a non-online network. I said, I'm going to take over what AfterBuzz was doing and do it myself. Where Tony, how was it for you? I mean, I know how it was, but out there, to decide to take your hugely hit show, Dish and Days, with this huge, online presence, to do it yourself.
I feel like there was no like sit down, let me think about this, plan this out. It was, there's no way we can not do shows. This was like the beginning of July, I believe. And for Days of Our Lives, that was going to be a very important month. There were 3 weddings that were coming up that were, going to be major deals. We had the first African-American wedding that was going to happen. We had another wedding between 2 of the characters. And then we had this huge wedding between 2 characters that everyone was like a super fan of. And I was like, there's no way in the world that we can be on hiatus right now. And so when it was looking like we were back on another hiatus and there was no kind of light at the end of whatever tunnel they were creating, I looked at, my co-host, Michael Madison. I was like, we just got to keep it going. And that's what we did. We figured it out. So I started the YouTube channel. I looked at Michael Madison. I said, this is what we're going to have to do. You're going to have to go on AfterBuzz and download every single one of our episodes, because I'm transferring all them bitches over to ours. I'm not done yet because I stopped. Okay. But I was like, we have too much of a fan base and we have so much that's separate from AfterBuzz that there's no reason why we can't continue. But also we kind of had our fans, I don't want to say trained to tune into our show by basically clicking on a link. So now that link goes directly to our page, and it was a seamless transition. They don't see a difference, except we don't mention AfterBuzz anymore. They're now on our YouTube channel, and our show has remained the same. So it was a seamless transition, but it was an easy decision to decide that we were just going to continue, and we wanted to continue for our fans and these people who have been tuning into us for 5 years. We mainly did it for them because this was a safe space to come and talk about your favorite soap opera. And who watches soap operas? It's such a niche market that you can't lean to your coworker or in a virtual Zoom and go, girl, did you watch Days of Our Lives yesterday? Chances are no one has watched it, but you can talk about any other show. But this particular show has a particular type of fan base, so it was an easy decision to keep it going.
Also, we should keep in mind, because of the pandemic, there were no new soaps for the first time in American history, except for Days of Our Lives.
Days of Our Lives was the only one.
They had filmed it a year in advance. Yeah. So they had enough shows to get them through the pandemic, where the other 3 soaps, there was no new shows. And that was the first time.
Days of Our Lives has not missed a beat.
Nope.
There have been new episodes since the shutdown. There wasn't a week or a day or anything where they didn't have a new episode. So there was no way that we weren't gonna not cover that stuff. I mean, there were some important things coming up that fans were looking to us to know what we thought about. So we had to first and foremost do it for them. And then we had to make adjustments to our show. There was a host that was still affiliated with AfterBuzz that we were like, unfortunately, if you're going to still be affiliated, like you can't be affiliated with us because we're off doing our own thing. And another host who right before had made the decision to go off and do her own thing. So that left too. So we're now in this pandemic. We now have this show. We now have to keep going. We now have to transfer all this up. We now have to figure out how to be engineers on our own and how to get this stuff, the same as far as like watching it live and streaming it live and things like that. So it was a lot, but we did it. So
you did.
Yeah.
You guys did do it. And I want to ask each of you guys on the line of that, what is the show or interview that really just, you're just like, okay, this is why I do this. Why I do this. I have one that I know of course, but it's two that I know of. But I'm like, for each of you guys, is there an episode of a show you did or an interview you did that you were like, yeah, this is why I'm here? And I'll leave it to anybody who wants to go first.
I mean, I can think of a few, but I feel like I just talked a whole lot, so I should pass the mic to someone else for a second.
I'll start off first. Mine. Well, I'll start by Tony knows my number one, of course. And that was Kristen Alfonso, and that was something that Tony made happen for me. She plays Hope on Days of Our Lives, and what people don't really understand, my family and friends know this. For 38 years, I have followed this actress. Like I followed her career on other shows, plus on Days of Our Lives.
And a side note, when James joined Dish and Days, his Instagram handle, his social media handle was Black Hope LA. The character's name is Hope. Now, we on the panel thought, oh, Black Hope LA. Yes, Black Hope for LA. And then one day he was like, because I'm the Black Hope. And we literally went, is that why it's Black Hope LA? He was like, yeah, I'm a huge fan of Hope, and I think of myself as the Black Hope. And I was like, bitch, we're sitting here thinking you are like, yes, Black Hope, go Black people. And you're sitting here calling yourself the Black Hope. Okay.
Wow.
I love this character. I love this character so much. And we had near misses over the years. We talked online. She wished my grandson happy birthday one year. When I had Bell's palsy, my face was paralyzed. I wasn't there. One year I was at Day of Days, she wasn't there. Then one day she wasn't there. So Tony was like, she's gonna be there. I was feeling better, of course, last year. And I said, James, just come and do this one. I'll just do this one interview. Like I wasn't there to do they were gonna do the others, the other coast, and then the coast objected. Everybody knew it's James Lott Jr. Again, he's also doing it for the fans. He knew the fans knew my whole thing with Kristen Alfonso. Like it would be a moment. And I'll tell you, when she arrived, we had this little corner, and he walked into the green room, and Tammy Govea goes, she's here. I had to go into a corner and collect myself. My heart was beating on my chest. Mm-hmm. And so I saw her go. It's like she just glided up. She wasn't even walking. She just glided up the stairs. I was like, oh my God. So then, maybe like 34 minutes later, everybody was standing there. I remember seeing lights, Tony, everybody standing there. And I was like, James, here's Kristen Alfonso and Galen Gehring. I knew Galen Gehring already, a co-star. And I look at her and she says, James, finally. And I fell into her arms. And I'll tell you something, the fact that because you're always afraid to meet your idols or heroes or whatever, because they could be totally bitches and shit. She smelled good. She was so nice. There's a clip of me squealing at the end of my interview because I'm so, and I just come, yeah. I mean, trust me, I got a deep voice. Apparently, I squealed. Michael Mattis caught it when he was doing the camera work. But they all were watching. It was funny. I saw Tony and them were all smiling because it was a moment. 38 years in the making, literally. I was waiting for this, and she could have been more gracious. Galen was wonderful. He loved the moment. It's interviews out there, of course. It was just, but it's one of those things that made me go, this is why I'm here. That dreams can come true. They can. It may take 38 years or 13 years in the business, however long it was I was in the business at the time. But that's the one interview that made me go, this is why I like doing this stuff. This is why I like doing it. Because any other medium, this would have never have happened. Yeah. And she left the show a year later. So it was meant to be. Yep. She left the show after 40 years or whatever. It was meant to be.
Well, after talking to you, she had nothing left to accomplish.
That was it. I bet James Lott Jr. and that's it, everybody. I'm out. Yeah. I quit. So anybody have an interview or something that makes them just kind of go, yeah, I'm glad I'm in this business.
One thing that stuck out to me is I had the chance to chat with a guy named Eric Bischoff, who was the president of a wrestling company, WCW, back in the late 90s. Oh, wow. And he basically ran the whole thing. He was an on-air personality as well. And I loved him growing up as a kid. So it was cool to get to, it was one of those things. Steve Kaufman, who I think some of us know from AfterBuzz TV, he said to me, Jack, you should always try to make 13-year-old you happy. And it was one of those moments where I'm chatting with this guy who I used to look up to, or, I was a fan of growing up. And I was like, man, he ran the company that I used to love. And now I'm chatting with this guy. And to me, that was one of those, like, if I could just go back in time and tell younger me, Jack, someday you're going to have a chat with this fella. I'd have been like, no way. And it happened, and it was really cool. I also got to interview a guy named Vampiro, who I was a big fan of, who was a wrestler. And he said I asked him the greatest question he's ever been asked in his entire life. And it was just cool. I mean, kind of cool bucket list lifetime moments where you're like, man, if younger me knew that I was going to get to do this, wouldn't believe it.
Yeah. I agree with that. And Flobo.
Man, as far as like, there's structurally interviews I like. It's based on me hitting milestones in the craft, being like, hey, maybe I can actually do this for a living. But that usually happens with like with my friends, right? When you sit there, you actually have the long form interview. But like, as far as like celebrities, there's two in my career that I like. One was on a red carpet when I was with a colleague, Jim Alexander. He was on my show a couple of times. We were working the red carpet, and we saw comedian Russell Peters, who was on the red carpet, and I flagged him down because, like, you know, where everyone was packing up, it was Byron Allen's like Oscar watch party, not the name drop, but you know what it is. It's like a side watch party.
I met Byron Allen. I know Byron
Allen. Yeah, he's a legend, man. He had very soft hands too, like Mariana Fierro's. So it was
important to know.
Yo, I'm telling you the facts. That's why I know, man. It was funny because Jim is a movie guy, and so he was basically done for the day. But I saw Russell Peters. I mean, this is a guy that made the accent his thing, but like a smart comedian, pivot into a whole different routine and act. He didn't like dumb down and stick in one thing. And so I rushed the camera and I asked him questions, and he was like, you know, like, thanks so much. He was so graceful. And I was like, man, I hope to be on your level someday. And he's like, well, how long have you been doing comedy? And it's like, at the time, it was like 5.5 years. He goes, and you're on red carpets interviewing like celebrities? Like, yo, you're further along than I was at this level. Stick with it. And of course, you do with some Caribbean jokes, because that's what Russell Peters does. He's all racial joke stuff, but it's pretty solid. And the second one, I mean, I don't want to make this to an AfterBuzz show, but I remember the last time when I got the phone call from Jeff Graham, which was the producer of Better Together, Maria's new show. She's like, hey, Flobo, how's it going? You know, how you doing during this time? It was June, Black Lives Matter movement. And I go, I've been better. Thanks for calling. He's like, look, man, we got Charlotte Flair on the show tomorrow. Maria's been pretty busy. She hasn't been watching the past couple of weeks. You come in and help us out and like feed her information. I was like, oh, no problem, not a problem. But then I guess I just like inadvertently flooded her with so much information. She was like, we're just going to keep you on, okay? And so I got to interview like the 10-time women's champion Charlotte Flair, daughter of Ric Flair. I mean, you can't take that away from me now. I clipped that in. It's in my reel. I made it happen. It felt cool because not only we ask her wrestling questions, like it was funny because we made Charlotte Flair reevaluate her life on the show and said, hey, look, if you're concerned about being a Flair, start being Ashley. Stop being Charlotte Flair. Start being Ashley Flair. And like 2 months later, when she took time off, I was like, was that me? Like, did I cause her to leave the business? I have no idea. So that was pretty fun. Yeah.
That's very cool. That's very cool.
For me, there's a couple of interviews. One is from my web show, Lounging with Tony, and it's when I interviewed Raven Simone. That interview for me is the one that I felt like this is how my show is supposed to be. The interview was fun. It looked like two friends were just having a conversation. She was relaxed, I was relaxed. Like it was such a great episode. Another episode from Lounging with Tony that I'm very proud of, and I was just happy to sit down and speak with her, was Dawn Richard of Danity Kane. I was a huge fan of Danity Kane. They hadn't been on the canvas for a while. I'd been chasing this interview for a while. And then there she was right across from me. And we were having one of the best conversations ever. And it was also the first Lounger with Tony that I saw kind of go viral because MTV.com picked up the interview and other like blogs and outlets picked up the interview because no one had heard about, Danity Kane since they were fired by Diddy. And, there's Dawn like giving a recap of like what happened, post what happened. And shortly after they actually, came back. And then, I think those were the two main ones. Another one was Wayne Brady. Like I enjoyed just sitting and talking with him And yeah, and then the biggest, I didn't get a chance to interview her, but she actually gave me a really great compliment. I was on the carpet of the Emmys, and I'm a huge fan of The Real. And so all the ladies from The Real were walking by, but I couldn't grab them for an interview because they were kind of rushing them along. But Tamara, who, you know, had seen me in the audience and everything like that, she said, I've seen some of your stuff. You're doing a great job. Keep it up. And I was like, you seen my stuff? And she actually said it to me again in studio when she saw me. She was like, I've been seeing your stuff. Yeah, I saw your interview. I think she said she saw my interview with Raven. She was like, I loved it. Like, you know, keep going. And I was like, that was the biggest compliment, that someone had seen it and, like, you know, said that I was doing a good job. So those are mine.
You know, Tony, it's so funny because I interviewed, P. Diddy has a couple of charter schools back east, one in Harlem, one in some, and I interviewed his principal, Dina Jones, and he said my name. I never interviewed him either. I've never met him, but he said my name. So yeah, I love that James Lott Jr. He does great interviews. He interviews all these people. My show a lot of help, and I just thought, Sean Combs said my name. Like, I mean, you don't even understand. I guess.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
kind of inspiration from you with that. And also I want to say, an interview that Tony and I did together with a couple people that I really just loved was Eileen Davidson. Eileen Davidson
Oh my God.
is an icon on daytime TV for the last 40-something years.
Yes.
Yes. And Housewives of Beverly Hills. And we got to get to interview her, and we had a lot of drama before that, leading up to that episode, that show. I almost didn't come in. But I'm glad we came, and it was one of the best. She was one of those gracious, her and Jimmy Van Patten, which for me, as a 70s kid, 80s kid, 80s enough, his father, Dick Van Patten, was a huge, that whole thing. So it was like that whole interview. That was a great time.
It was
she was
great.
So nice afterwards. Before.
Oh, she was so down to earth, and I, you know, I'm like, oh my God, this is Eileen Davidson. This is Kristen Demara. This is, you know, she's been on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Like, you know, you knew her from there, and I was just like, you know, so you do have these moments when you are creating your stuff, and you have these moments where you feel very proud of yourself because you went after that person, you sent that email. And this was one of the things that off camera, we were talking to Flobo about the other day, was just not having that fear to go after, like, if you want to interview a certain person, go after them, you know, and really take that chance. It's the most frightening thing ever to create that email and send it, or to slide in the DMs and send it, or, you know, but sometimes it has the greatest reward, you know, and I've experienced that quite a few times, you know, sending that email and going, they're not gonna, you know, get back to me, whatever. It's gonna be the same, yeah. And then it goes, yes, this person is available. When do you want them? And you're like,
okay.
Yeah. This is happening.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, it's funny. I don't know about you guys, but the first time I ever got a response back, my first response was actually like, shoot, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Oh no. What do I do now?
What do I do now? Exactly.
That was almost more scary when they said yes. I was like, I don't know. Now I've got to figure out how to actually do this part. But that's exactly what got me the gig over at United Wrestling Network. Was just honestly, people have asked me, how'd you get it? And it was a message I sent on LinkedIn. You know, the social networking site no one uses anymore. I sent a message on LinkedIn, and that's how the whole thing started. So yeah, I mean, it's terrifying sending the message. It's more terrifying in getting the response, but I mean, I've never actually gotten a mean response. I've gotten no response plenty of time, but I've never gotten anything negative or mean.
Yeah.
That's funny. I'm going to tell you, so on the lines of that, how do you deal with, we all go through this. I mean, all of us, I go through it still too sometimes. I titled this, I post a picture of food, I get 1,000 likes. But I post a picture of my new show, I get 2. So how do you guys deal with that? I know we all go through it. I talked to so many people, we all go through that. Like, how does that feel?
One of the things that I've had to learn during this pandemic is to not pay attention to the numbers, because you will feel discouraged. During the pandemic, and James, you know this, I created, you know, IG shows, and I would put all this time and effort and, testing out, my TV to see if I can like present pictures and collecting and doing all this stuff as if I'm actually, I'm producing a show, but it's just on IG Live. And 5 people would be in the room. And I would think to myself, like, why am I doing this? Or I post about my show More Please all the time. James likes it, but that's usually the only person that does. But I posted that I'm on the weakest link, and that has 400 likes and shares and comments and all that. So what I've had to learn was do not pay attention to the numbers. Don't let that discourage you. Because in your heart of hearts, you are creating something that first and foremost brings you joy. And secondly, whoever shows up for it, whoever watches it, whether it's one person, whether it's 100 people, whether it's 10,000 people, you're doing it for whoever decides to click and sit through whatever it is that you created. And that amount of people shouldn't matter. Because if at the end of the day, you're happy with your product, that's all that matters. So
and you got to start somewhere. Everybody has to start. I mean, Edition Days wasn't 10,000 people in the beginning. I mean, it was not.
So post that photo. If you want to post food and it only gets 10 likes, that's fine. Other people will tell you to post things that are within your brand, and that's great when you know what your brand is. If you are a chef, then most likely every post that you make is going to be about food, and that's why people are gravitating towards you. If you are someone who is very multifaceted, like probably all of us in this room, it's hard because you want to post everything. You want to post the plate of food. You want to post yourself at a wrestling match. You want to post, repost this, popular thing in hopes of just someone noticing you. But I'm the person of like, don't let numbers discourage you. Post what you want to post, put out what you want to put out, because you never know who's going to take notice of it. And sometimes some people take notice and they don't hit like, and they're supporting and acknowledging from afar. I've had that happen. So
yeah, I was going to add on to that. Yeah, because the truth is, like, I mean, I look at social media, but I honestly don't click around and hit like on a lot of things. Not because I don't like things, but just because I don't want to hit like on literally every single thing I'm scrolling through. It becomes silly, right? And a lot of people are doing that. And I think something else to take away is, as far as the numbers not mattering, one, they don't matter. And I use my Instagram as an example. Most of my Instagram, if you follow me on Instagram, is wedding related stuff, because I'm a DJ and I DJ a lot of weddings, or at least I used to back before COVID happened. And hopefully someday I will again. But I do a lot of those, and I always post wedding pictures. Now, I don't get a ton of likes on things, but what I always get is emails from brides wanting to see what my rates are or wanting to hire me. And they say, I looked and scrolled through your Instagram and there were tons of great pictures of you DJing. I want to book you. You seem great. Now, they're not liking all the pictures either, but they're seeing the content has been there and it's been created, and they're the eyeballs I want anyway. So it works out that way. And the same thing is happening with any other piece of content you do out there. Just because someone doesn't like the tweet about the link doesn't mean that they're not checking out the video, or it doesn't mean that the right person that you want to see it isn't going to see it later either. The like doesn't, no one pays you per like. You're not going to get NBC Universal to say, wow, you got 400 likes on that picture of food. Here's a check for millions of dollars. It's so the likes literally do not matter. So don't get too hung up on them.
Unless it's a paid ad then.
Oh, well, yeah. Paid ads like www.thebrosters.com, promo code BROCODE1. Those numbers matter.
Yeah,
you better slide in that promo.
I love you, Jack. I love you. Flobo, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. If you're basically on our level, and by that I mean we have constant shows on a regular basis, and you're probably looking for monetary deals, then yes, Jack is absolutely right. It's about establishing a brand, a quality over a longer period of time to show a producer that you're bankable, that he can invest in you. What else you got, kid, is very Hollywood. But if you're asking this question, if let's say you're someone who's taking the jump for the first time, the person who agonized over 20 years starting a cooking show and they get 6 views and they're discouraged, that's where Tony yourself comes in. There is like don't worry about it. You did it. You shared it. Show it to your friends for now. Understand the process. it took me a while to take the numbers as being relative. And I had the advantage of like posting a lot of stuff over the last year. When I get What's Up Flobo and I get 12 views on that, that was way more than 3 I was getting 6 months ago. And it's literally the same kind of content. So like, to me, that's growth. And I was saying this to, I think, Jack a couple weeks ago. New Amsterdam Radio, my podcast, was essentially me on my phone talking about things happening in news for creative people. Like, oh, Elon Musk is releasing a Cybertruck. What does it mean to expand your brand, for example? It was only after the pandemic when an old high school friend was like, hey, I'm on your show next week. And I was like, okay, I'll do guests. And I've done guests ever since episode 42 on. And after episode 53, and I tell this all the time, ever since I interviewed Leslie Colon, my podcast never bottoms out, which means now I have not gone a week where there's no downloads or on a show. So like the line is like still like this, but now it's like that. And you're right. It may be one key interview. It may be one key topic, but that there is a growth there. You just gotta be patient with yourself. So that's why you have to give yourself the space, at least treat it as a hobby. Even though you have aspirations of getting that deal, it's a hobby for now until the numbers are validated.
Yeah.
And sometimes a video you've done will hit later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You just never know. I've had it happen several times where all of a sudden I'm looking at my top 10 shows of the week. I'm like, that one from January of last year has all of a sudden got 300 views. Like you have to look in the news and go, what's big? You just never know. But I think what Tony and Jack and you guys are all kind of saying is just do quality work consistently, no matter if it's 1 view or 1,000. So you can work that you can stand by and stand behind, and then the right pair of eyes will see it. They need to see it. That's how I look at it. The right pair of eyes will see it. Sometimes you'll go viral. Sometimes you won't. It is this kind of. I still get videos that have 4 or 5 views on them, and I'm still proud of those shows. I'm very proud of those shows. I just had a video now to 7,000. It went viral this week. But either one, I stand by both. I stand by both shows. I produced them both exactly the same way. I didn't do anything different. So that's kind of thing. The numbers just like. I like that point that Jack was saying too. Like some people they don't want to like everything. They may even like one picture, but not the other 7.
Right.
But they aren't noticing what you're doing. But it's frustrating sometimes. I get it. It's frustrating.
But like any social media, there's a bit of a transaction there. So you got to understand, like when you're saying, hey, I have a show or look at my video, you're asking for that dollar. And so if you're a friend who always asks for $1, your friends don't want to hang out with you because they don't want to give up $1, right? It's also important to make some personality happen. Sometimes when I follow someone on Twitter, they may be funny or do funny stuff in addition to whatever it is that they're selling. So I try to mix it up. Sometimes I look into my joke book and I say, well, man, I have 3 posts of like podcasts this week. Let me throw in a joke in there to break it up to show people I'm not a bot. I'm actually a human being who do things and does things as well, in addition to me selling out and asking to watch stuff and go to brosters.com, bro code 1, get coffee.
You leave Jack Farmer alone, and
I have to do more of that. Y'all telling me I'm not selling out, so I'm selling out right now. I'm selling out for Jack.
Flobito.threadless.com. Flobo, come on.
I bought a Flobo tank top. He didn't give it to me. I spent my own money.
And it was nice.
I bought a tank top and I wore it.
I bought a Jack Farmer sweatshirt. It came in the mail yesterday. I'm excited to wear it.
Okay, merch.
Yeah, okay, merch.
I got to buy a Jack Farmer sweatshirt next. Tony,
RealJackFarmer.threadless.com.
There you go. Well, unfortunately, it's been an hour. We have to do this again. But maybe we'll do a part 2. Thank you. I have more questions.
Yeah.
It went by so fast.
I think one thing that anyone that's watching this needs to keep in mind is that if you want to create something, go and do it. There are so many tools that you can use. There's so many social media platforms that you can use to create stuff on your own. And we have that luxury. Many years ago, even, when James was around and born, there weren't these platforms and opportunities to do stuff for yourself. So start with an idea. Look and research as what you need to do in order to make that idea happen, and then just keep doing it and put it out there and molding it and fixing it and pivoting it until it brings you whatever it is that you're seeking from that. So just do it.
And we'll end on that. And yes, I am 51, almost 52 years old, people. So I'm telling you, I got into this business in my 40s. So if you think you can't do it, I did it in my last 13 years of my 11 years of my life. I can't do it. Can't do math. That in my life. That it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how old you are.
This is true.
And I do.
It doesn't matter if you were there when Moses parted the Red Sea or when Noah was loading up the ark.
It doesn't matter. They're great friends. They're great friends. Yeah, exactly.
James, you don't look a day over 50.
Wait a minute.
Why are you roasting this dude right now?
I look good. So I'm not worried about that. I have no wrinkles, no. I look good, so I'm not worried about you people. So, I'm James Lott Jr., and I want to thank these fine gentlemen for coming on. So quickly, tell people where they can find you, starting with you, Jack Farmer, where they can find your stuff.
Yeah, you can find me at jackcfarmer.com, as well as at anytimeradio.com, as well as at Real Jack Farmer across all social media. You can also check me out on the Everything Tournament every Thursday, where we battle out every single thing to find the ultimate thing at number one to win the tournament.
And Flobo Boyce.
Yeah, you can learn about any show that I'm working on at newamsterdam.com. That's KNEWamsterdam.com. All the information about the shows are there. Support the homie and buy a t-shirt or a mask or a mug at flobito.threadless.com. And I'm on Twitter. I'm at Flobo Boyce, y'all.
Yes, and he's also on Mistletoe Road out on Mondays, which it comes out. And then he's also on the JLJ Christmas crossover special, which is coming out on the 23rd.
Come on, crossover.
Yeah.
So we did. Tony Moore, the OG, tell them where they can find you.
Well, you can find me on all social media platforms at Lounging with Tony. You can check out my web show, More Please, which is on my YouTube channel, Lounging with Tony. You can also check me out on Dish and Days to give you a full dish of the week's episodes of Days of Our Lives. And you can check that out on our YouTube channel, Dish and Days, and also Instagram and Facebook, Dish and Days, and _Dish and Days on the Twitter.
And he's also on my other show, Forever in a Day, on the Christmas special. Comes out this next Friday. He plays James. So he's on that. It's audio dramas. Yes. And I'm going to keep it simple right now because, whatever. I am James Lott Jr. You can follow me. We're all James Lott Jr. is sold at James Lott Jr. on all social media platforms, including TikTok, people. TikTok. Yeah. And also subscribe to this channel, please. JLJ Media. I'm an online network. Check out my shows. Anything from Star Wars to soaps and everything in between. Organizing, life coaching, everything. Please check it out. Subscribe to someone who's trying to put out positive content that has diversity. That's what I'm trying to do, and making it just normal. I'm not making it big, just make it normal. Everybody's welcome, except, well, some people aren't welcome, but most people are welcome on my channel.
Why would you even say that?
And that's why, everybody, we're done. And I tell you, the first one, we're back together. We got more to talk about. We're back together, so stay tuned for that. Please be safe out there, everyone. Please be